Hello, movie lovers. Welcome back to SignaMovie channel. Today is all about fresh cinema experiences, and I can't wait to share my thoughts on the newest filmmaking its mark. Sit back, relax, and let's dive into the recap of this exciting cinematic adventure. The film takes put within the year 1823 and opens with Captain Henry's bunch of seekers as they travel through the woodland. One day, as their direct, Hugh Glass, and his child, Sel, are out chasing, the camp is trapped by the individuals of the Arikara tribe who are looking for their chief's stole girl, Pogoa. The following fight comes about in different passings, whereas everybody else is constrained to escape the camp too to spare their lives. Glass tries to lead them to security, but Fitzgerald contends with him over his thought processes as he accepts Glass doesn't care almost them and is as it were attempting to spare his child. Their contention is hindered by Captain Henry, who, not at all like Fitzgerald, has complete confidence in Glass and considers they ought to concentrate on their elude range rather than battling among themselves. Petal is disturbed by the circumstance, but Glass guarantees him that he will pay attention of him on the travel, as he's his, as it were, remaining family after the passing of his spouse. The following this morning, the gather forsakes their ass. It were vessel upon Glass's recommendation, as he considers moving by the stream will make them more helpless to assaults. After arriving at the riverbank, they start reserving the pelts beneath Henry's command. Fitzgerald at first objects to his choice, since it's his, as it were, way of making a living, but Henry strengthens him to comply. As the gather settles in for the night, Glass makes a fast visit to the woodland alone, where he is brutally assaulted by a bear. After hearing the gunfire, Henry and his men race to the protect but discover him close passing as he's being smashed beneath the bear's body after murdering it. As they treat his wounds, Henry orders the bunch to secure the region as he fears their indigenous aggressors might have been cautioned to their nearness by the discharge. But fortunately, they stay secure for the evening. After securing the area, the gather talks about their arrange of moving to Post Kiowa, whereas Petal comforts his father, who appears to be scarcely lively. Another morning, they proceed on their travel, whereas carrying Glass in escalation cold climate, but a few individuals start to complain that he's abating them down. Upon hearing this, Fitzgerald proposes a benevolent slaughtering to put Glass out of his hopelessness. In spite of Hawke's challenge, Henry concurs but cannot bring himself to drag the trigger. Instead, he declares a cash remunerate for the individuals who look out of Glass, whereas the rest are relegated to go and discover a way to the post. As Sel and another part of the party, Bridger, remain with Glass, Fitzgerald chooses to join as well, considering the money make-up for the misfortunes he confronted after abandoning the pelts. Henry acknowledges this choice and prompts him to legitimately bury Glass on the off chance that he happens to kick the bucket on the travel. After the gather takes off with Henry, Sel tries to keep Glass diverted by talking to him. In the interim, Glass flashes back to how their village had been trapped by the intruders who burnt the complete place. His spouse was murdered within the assault, whereas he and a extremely injured Hawke scarcely made it out lively. Whereas out within the woodland, Fitzgerald starts burrowing a grave for Glass, considering he won't survive for long. One day, as Sel and Bridger are absent, Fitzgerald charges Glass of imperiling his son's life by abating him down. He at that point tries to cover him, but is found by Petal fair in time. Infuriated, Sel assaults him and tries to slaughter him. As they contend with each other, Fitzgerald fears Hawke's boisterous response might alarm Bridger, who's gone in look of water. So he wounds him right before Glass, who is defenseless to do anything but observe his child drained to passing. Upon his return, Bridger asks about Sel, but Fitzgerald denies knowing anything approximately it, imagining that he vanished. Glass tries to tell him the truth, but he cannot get at what he's attempting to say. Another day, Fitzgerald wakes Bridger and tells him that the Arikaras are coming towards them and they must elude. Bridger inquires approximately Sel once more as he has still not shown up, but he considers he has gone elsewhere, and they cannot hold up for him. Fitzgerald also suggests clearing out Glass behind intellect, but Bridger refuses, reminding him they guarantee the captain to deliver him a proper burial. On hearing this, Fitzgerald buries Glass lively from the neck down. In show disdain toward of his challenges, Bridger closes up clearing out with Fitzgerald apologizing to Glass and clearing out his spiraling grave canteen. In the meantime, The captain and his trappers proceed making their way to Post Kiowa. After a few time, Glass oversees to slither out from his grave and finds Hawk's dead body adjacent. He grieves his son's passing and vows to take vindicate for his son's kill. Somewhere else, Bridger gets to be suspicious of Fitzgerald and inquire him almost the assault, to which he confesses to lying approximately. Bridger gets irate with him and laments clearing out Glass and cell. He pulls out his weapon, but Fitzgerald rapidly takes him down and inclinations him to think approximately himself rather than those left behind. After resting following to Hawk's dead body, Glass sadly clears out him within the woodland and begins crawling forward. He cauterizes his wounds with a hot cut and rests by a riverbank, while the Arikara begins looking for him after finding his assets close Hawk's body. After spending the night beneath a cliff and nourishing on a winged creature he chased, Glass spots the Arikara but escapes just in time by bouncing into the rapids. On their travel, Fitzgerald and Bridger come over a butcher town where Bridger finds a female survivor and furtively clears out a few nourishment for her without telling Fitzgerald as he fears he might murder her. At night, Bridger offers that he still considers approximately whether they did the correct thing by clearing out Glass behind. But Fitzgerald assures him it was the finest thing to do for their claimed survival, and in case they had not done it, it might have driven them into genuine inconvenience as he was holding them back. In the meantime, Glass securely makes it out of the stream and proceeds his travel through the wild. He comes across a Pawnee outcast, Hiccup, who initially sees him as a risk, but changes his mind after Glass asks him for nourishment. As Glass tells him approximately his injuries and Fitzgerald's selling out, Hiccup comforts him by saying exact retribution is in the Creator's hands. They bond with each other as Hiccup shares meat with him, sometime recently carrying him on his horseback with Fitzgerald and Bridger. They at last arrive at the fortification and tell Henry about Glass's death and Hawk's vanishing. When Henry presents their prize cash, Bridger denies to require it, but Fitzgerald fulfills him by clarifying that he, as well, is disturbed for not being able to assist Glass. Back within the timberland, Glass and Highcuck confront a snowstorm. After learning around his wounds, Highcuck builds a shelter for him and nurses him until he has recouped. Upon waking up the next day, Glass finds Highcuck has been hanged by French seekers, whereas invading their camp, he spots their pioneer assaulting Pogo and spares her by assaulting him. After she cuts him. In Vindicate, Glass shoots some seekers and strengthens the others to take off, losing his canteen within the fight. Things get worse the following morning when he's assaulted by the Arikara and faces a terrible mishap as his horse is driven off a cliff. Surviving the drop, Glass cuts open his horse to require refuge inside its carcass in order to form it through the stormy night. As he wakes up another morning within the solidifying cold, his intense struggle to outlive certifies his plans to murder Fitzgerald, the man capable for his wretchedness. Meanwhile, a French survivor arrives at the post and demands Henry let him remain with them. After he has taken interior, he tells them around the assault from an obscure man who slaughtered numerous of his companions. As he offers his possessions as emolument for his remain, Bridger spots his canteen among the assets and questions him around it. In spite of the fact that he cannot tell them about the owner of the canteen, Fitzgerald realizes it must be Glass. After addressing him about the location of their camp, Henry organizes a look party for peddling Glass. Whereas Fitzgerald stresses his lies will soon be uncovered, the search begins, and they discover seriously depleted Glass instead of peddle. As Henry surges to assist, he tells him approximately Fitzgerald. After returning to the post, Henry looks for Fitzgerald, but soon discovers that he has cleared out the camp after taking all the money for his secure. When the men return with Glass, Henry beats Bridger for lying to him and siding with Fitzgerald in his cruel rage. Bridger tries to clarify his position, but no one believes him. After having his wounds treated, Glass affirms that Bridger is telling the truth and was not display when Fitzgerald slaughtered Cell. He uncovers that Fitzgerald hoodwinked him as well and constrained him to follow his orders, so he had no choice but to comply. Amid the discussion, Henry uncovers that Fitzgerald has gotten away the fortification. Glass chooses to go after him, but Henry inquires him to hold up until his wounds get way better. He is worried almost Glass's health, but Glass, as it were, cares almost vindicated. Whereas talking, Glass tells Henry that his son was the as it were thing keeping him lively after his wife's passing. Presently, he has nothing to lose, so he is no longer afraid of passing on, basically needing to instruct Fitzgerald a lesson for what he did to them. Henry thinks they will effectively discover him even if they begin chasing him afterward. But Glass uncovers Fitzgerald is anxious of him and will try to go as far as possible, so they must begin searching for him as before long as they can. Henry eventually agrees to go with Glass, and they leave the fort to discover Fitzgerald. As they halt for the night, Henry offers his concern that since he's continuously absent from them, his family will have forgotten about him. He at that point inquires Glass approximately the assault on their town in which he slaughtered an officer, but Glass replies that he did it to spare his son's life as the officer was attempting to murder him. The another morning, they choose to part up, thinking they can cover more area that way. Henry before long finds Fitzgerald, who criticizes him for prioritizing Glass over everyone else. Henry says he extreme to take him back to the fortification, where he will be rebuffed for slaughtering Petal, but sometime recently he can endeavor to capture Fitzgerald. He shoots him dead. Glass listens the gunfire and surges to help, as it were to discover Henry's corpse. With Fitzgerald having as of now vanished once more, Glass takes Henry's body with him and uses it as a shield to spare himself from the attacks. When Fitzgerald realizes it, Glass shoots him in the arm, but he walks absent. After chasing each other, the two meet by the riverbank, where Glass stands up to him about Hawk's death. They engage in a brutal battle in which Glass overwhelms him after wounding him in the stomach. He is almost to slaughter him, but at that point spots the Arachara on the other side of the stream. He recollects Hekak's words and pushes Fitzgerald to their side, where he is murdered by their pioneer. As they have found Pogawa, the young lady who Glass saved prior, they save Glass and take off without saying anything to him. With a murmur of alleviation over having taken his revenge on Fitzgerald, Glass sees his wife's soul and takes a profound breath as she walks away. And the movie ends here. Thanks for watching our video. If you enjoyed this film recap and want more, subscribe now, like, and share captivating stories with your friends. Tell me which movie you'd like me to summarize next. See you soon.